friendship that'll never ever end.
Run! It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie Yo 423. Day in the neighborhood. My brothers and sisters. Last week, the video that we watched from this man's channel was an unsolved mystery, right? And y'all know how I hate freaking unsolved mysteries, man, because I like a little closure at the end of these stories. And I'm still to this day trying to figure out who exactly murdered those teens at Lake Bodom. You know what I'm saying, man? It's just something that'll always go through your head when you're dealing with these unsolved mysteries. Like for me, literally, it'll be months later and I'll just randomly think about, man, who murdered that person in that store? And it just never is closure, y'all. And that's why I really don't like unsolved mysteries. Long story short, short story long. But today, we are going back to this man's channel to watch a video that I think he put out 2 days ago. But this time, it is actually about solved mysteries. And that man's channel that I'm talking about is The Lazy Man. Lazy Masquerade. Back to The Lazy Man, y'all. And I hope y'all doing excelente out there today. And I'm glad that you came on back to the channel once again. So fuck with the bean. And the title of the video is Solved Mysteries That Will Make You Question Humanity. Now that's a little kind of effed up that they are actually solved and it still make you question humanity. You know what I'm saying, man? So I don't know, y'all. I know it's 2 different stories that the Lazy Man about to get into, and I'm just ready to get into it with y'all. But before we get into these 2 stories, my brothers and sisters, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you may need. Get what you need, please. We back to the Lazy Man. Once again. Y'all got what y'all need, y'all ready to go? Then let's go. The Lazy.
So I googled my name recently, and the results were unsettling. Turns out loads of my info.
Every time I forget that the Lazy Man started his videos off with his commercials, but y'all fuck with oral.com/Lazy Masquerade. And let's take it back right here. Let's go.
Below.
Sophie Sergi.
Alaska. Stark and beautiful in equal measure. A tundra full of warm-hearted locals. A land of dark winters and colourful cultures. A state with a homicide rate well above the national average.
Damn.
When it comes to murder in the lost frontier, native Alaskans seem to be disproportionately targeted, with the indigenous population 4 times more likely to meet their end at the hands of another human.
Out of all the states, my brothers and sisters, Alaska would have been very far down on my list of which ones I would think got the highest murder rate. You know what I'm saying, man? I would have never freaking thought Alaska. Alaska? Wow. I would have been thinking like New York, California, Texas, Florida, you know, the big states. Wow.
And due in large part to the lack of media coverage they receive, their cases are far less likely to be resolved. Born in Pitcairn Point in 1971, Sophie Sergi was a proud member of the Yupik tribe. A bright spark with big dreams, she received a full scholarship to study marine biology at the University of Alaska Fairbanks in 1990. becoming the first member of her family to attend higher education. Fairbanks marked Sophie's first foray into the big wide world. Coming from a rural village of less than 150 people, the university campus alone must have felt like a metropolis. A bubbly girl with a charming personality, a quick wit, and a quirky sense of humour, Sophie was something of a social butterfly. She flourished in her new surroundings, and within no time made a large and eclectic group of friends. In December of 1992, Sophie was told she needed braces put on her teeth. To cover the cost, she opted to take the spring semester off school, returning to Pitcairn Point to work as a teacher's assistant. Sophie returned to Fairbanks on Saturday, April 24th, 1993, to have her braces adjusted. While there, she stayed with her good friend, Shirley Wasuli, in her UAF dorm room, situated on the second floor of Bartlett Hall, a three-dorm complex that housed 777 students. On Sunday, the 25th, Sophie and three of her friends caught a movie in town, and then went to the Murphy Dome recreation area to watch the sunset. This photo, taken that same night, shows Sophie with a broad smile, mucking about in the cold Alaskan snow. It would be the last photo of her ever taken alive, captured mere hours before the unthinkable. Sophie's
It is just always so eerie, man, when you really just sit back and look at people in their final moments. Like, this lady at this point had no idea in a few hours she would not be alive anymore. You know what I'm saying, man? And it's just so freaky because she looks so happy and like she thinking about the next day and what's going to happen in the future and all that. And it's about to end. It's just always crazy to look at these photos.
His friends dropped her back at Bartlett Hall shortly after taking this photo. There, she met up with Shirley and Shirley's boyfriend Noah, a fellow student who lived on the floor above. The three of them ordered a pizza and watched movies in Shirley's room. At some point after midnight, Sophie asked if there was somewhere she could go for a smoke. She didn't particularly want to endure the freezing cold again if possible. Shirley told her to use the tub room down the hall, a small chamber right next to the showers, which housed a single bathtub. No one ever used it, and she could switch on the extractor fan to clear out the smoke. With one of her trademark smiles, Sophie set off, telling Shirley and Noah that she'd be back in a few minutes. The couple waited for Sophie to return for approximately half an hour. Figuring she must have bumped into one of her many friends somewhere else in the building, they left a note on Shirley's unlocked door, saying that they were spending the night in Noah's room upstairs. When Shirley returned in the morning, she noticed that the door was still unlocked, and that the bed she had prepared for Sophie hadn't been slept in.
This just looked like one of those random murders, y'all. I hate random murders too. I hate murder, period. You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, like, when it just be a stranger who just decide to attack somebody that they don't even freaking know, it's like, it's just make it worse. I don't know, y'all, but I know y'all get what I'm saying. Let's go.
2:42 p.m. The janitor cleaning Bartlett Hall dragged her mop and bucket into the tub room. Inside, she made a terrible discovery. Stuffed in the lone bathtub, soaking wet and lying on her back, was Sophie. The 20-year-old had been stabbed twice in one of her eyes, once in her cheek, and had been finished off with a shot to the back of the head.
Wow.
At close range. Her legs were bent, and her arms were raised above her head. There was evidence that she had been SA'd, and male fluid was found on her body.
Wow.
Despite a round having been fired into Sophie's skull, and despite the dorm rooms being less than 20 feet away, nobody in Bartlett Hall had heard the shot go off.
Wow.
That being said, one female student, who was in the adjacent shower room at the time, did report hearing voices and thumping noises coming from the tub room at approximately 1:30 a.m, followed by a strange crackle sound. She believed that somebody was setting off firecrackers. Though the killer was most likely a student, outsiders still couldn't be ruled out. At that time, UAF was notorious for its poor security. Just 2 months prior, a resident of Bartlett Hall had accused 2 basketball players of committing SA against her, while another watched. 2 years before that, a student had been attacked in a different dormitory by a soldier from Fort Wainwright. In 1972, a student named Jodie Stamber had been murdered on campus. And that's just scratching the tip of the iceberg. Since Bartlett Hall had such terrible security measures in place to protect its residents, and since people were free to come and go as they pleased, it was feasible that anyone could have gained access during those early morning hours.
Yeah.
The male fluid found on Sophie was collected, but at that time, Alaska still wasn't making use of DNA testing. The investigation into Sophie's slaying was hampered not only by the poor quality of the local forensic lab, but also by poor police work. By the time state troopers got around to interviewing Bartlett Hall's residents, many had already graduated and left Alaska.
Wow.
Only a small fraction were ever questioned. As the years passed,
So it sounds like they went too in a rush to find out what really happened to Sophie. You know what I'm saying, man? These people that moved on and graduated and left the state, and y'all slow poking with the investigation? Like, what the man?
passed by with no new leads to speak of, Sophie's friends and relatives began to fear that her case was doomed to freeze over.
And I gotta say too, real quick, y'all, that I think that it's somebody who went to that school. You know what I'm saying? I think it's another student who did it. I don't think it's just a random stranger from off the streets. Or you know what I'm saying? I think that whoever did this probably lived in the dormitory. Like seriously, that's what I think, man. Well, let's see.
That is, until 2018, when Randy McFarren took over the investigation and sent the DNA samples found on Sophie's body to a Virginia-based lab, one that specialized in a new technology: genetic genealogy. You may have noticed that a large number of decades-old cold cases have been solved in the past few years, and that's because we're now living in the age of genetic genealogy karma. Let's say you find the DNA of an unidentified perp at a crime scene, and you want to track down its owner. In the past, you'd have had to hope that their DNA was already in the national database, or that you already had suspects you could swab. Well, thankfully, things have started to become more sophisticated. With sites like MyHeritage and 23andMe becoming increasingly popular, more and more people are opting to have their DNA stored in databases like GEDmatch, which law enforcement have access to. Now a suspect's DNA may not come back with an exact match, but rather a list of partial matches, linking them to extended relatives who they may never have even met. From there, a reverse family tree can be constructed, which, with a bit of detective work and luck, can lead the authorities to the man or woman they're searching for. In the Golden State Killers case, Joseph James D'Angelo. In the Grim Sleepers case, Lonnie Franklin Jr. And in Sophie Sergey's case, Stephen H. Downs. A man with a clean record. A man whose DNA wasn't on file. A man who maintained such a low profile that state troopers hadn't even considered him a suspect during their initial investigation.
Wow.
A UAF alumni, Stephen had been a resident in Bartlett Hall at the time Sophie was slain. He had graduated without incident in 1996 and went on to become a nurse in his home state of Maine. His days in Alaska were now a long-distant memory. But, unfortunately for Stephen, his aunt had just sent her DNA to a genealogy website. She had hoped to find some distant relatives. Instead, she helped find a killer.
That is crazy, y'all. His auntie literally told on him without trying to tell on him. You know what I'm saying? But she probably, I'm pretty sure she didn't know that he was a fucking murderer. But I'm just saying that is so crazy. And I love it, y'all. I love the fact that we live in the 2024. You know what I'm saying? That we have advanced so much so there's different ways that you can get the DNA from people and tie it back to a murder scene that you had no idea who could have did it way back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Not even way back in the day. Like the 80s. You know what I'm saying? The 90s. Like, this whole thing is just getting better by the decade as far as like being able to use different methods to solve murders. And I really, really love that. And I think all y'all pretty much knew just like me. It was a foregone conclusion that whoever did this was a student at that damn school. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not too shocked by that. But that is crazy how this dude ended up getting caught. But I'm glad he did.
When her DNA profile was flagged by the Virginia lab techs as a partial match to the suspects, it led the authorities straight to Stephen. Officers paid him a visit at his home in Auburn. After obtaining a warrant, they took a swab of Stephen's cheek. His DNA was an exact match with the fluid found on Sophie's body. On February 15th, 2019, after 26 years of thinking he'd gotten away with murder, Stephen Downes was charged with taking Sophie Sergey's life. His past had finally caught up with him. During his trial, Stephen's defense lawyers tried to argue that his DNA may have ended up on Sophie consensually earlier that day, that its presence didn't definitively prove that he was responsible for her slaying. Besides, Stephen had been on the 4th floor with his girlfriend Kate at the time of the incident, watching movies in her room with several other students. How could he have been in 2 places at the same time? However, Kate testified that Stephen had been in and out of the room the night Sophie was slain, in particular during the very early hours. Not only that, but his was the only DNA found at the crime scene other than Sophie's, and his old roommate attested that Stephen kept a .22 pistol in their dorm room, the same caliber used to end Sophie's life. On February 10th, 2022, Stephen was found guilty of killing Sophie. In September of that same year, he was sentenced to 75 years behind bars. Stephen's lawyers tried to argue that 75 years was overly harsh, stating, "Steve is 48 years old now. He's over 400 pounds. I think his life expectancy is not going to be 103 years old. For nearly 30 years, he's been nothing but a model citizen. He became a nurse, one who cared for hundreds, if not thousands of patients." The defense then requested that
I don't give a fuck. I don't care about how many people you have helped over these 30 years where your ass should have been locked up. You know what I'm saying? Let's not forget that part, that you should have been locked up for these 30 years where you tried to turn your life around and all that. No, none of that ish matter, man. And I ain't gonna try to get too animated with y'all, but none of that matters. What matters is you ended Sophie's life, dude. And you got away with it for way too long. You know what I'm saying? And for 75 years is too harsh. Too harsh. She ain't getting no more years to live because of you. But that 75 too harsh because your ass 40 some years old, which basically means you're gonna die in prison. Thank God that they did make that decision. Get the hell out of here, man. These freaking defense lawyers and the stuff they be trying to come up with, they trying to make sympathy for this dude. Are any of y'all sympathizing with what he did to that girl, that woman? Anybody feel sorry for him? I thought not, my brothers and sisters. Let's go.
Stephen be given a more practical sentence, something under 20 years. That way, he could at least hug his parents again. Judge Thomas Temple responded, "Since April of 1993, Sophie Sergey hasn't been able to hug anyone. Exactly. No one's been able to hug Miss Sergey. No one will ever hug her again." Stephen's appeal was denied. Under a
just the way that the lawyers went about this so he can at least hug his parents again. It's almost like he's self-centered or something, or he just worried about himself and his life, even though he ended somebody else's life. Then, like Lazy Man just said, Sophie Sergey will never be able to hug anybody else again. You want to hug your goddamn parents, tell they had to come down there to visiting hours, and you give them a hug, and then you go on about your business. That's what you want to do. But your ass is in prison, my boy, for the rest of your life. F that. Let's go.
Alaskan law, he'll be eligible for early release after serving 1/3 of his sentence. In his case, 25 years.
25 years is the first opportunity that he'll have to get out. Okay, I'm trying to do a little math, my brothers and sisters. I can't remember exactly how old Lazy Man said he was. I think he said 43, but I'm not sure. So let's just say he's 45. Okay, 45 plus 25, you know what I'm saying? That'll be the earliest chance that he have to get out. He'll still be what? 70? 45, 26. Yeah, he'll be 70. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know how y'all feel about that. How y'all feel about that right there, man? I don't know, man. There's a lot of 70-olds out here living. You know what I'm saying? I don't want this man to get out of prison alive, period. No, he need to die in there. And we ain't gonna really go to what y'all know that I really think need to happen to him. I would have been put him up on that chair that's electric if that was my decision. Let's go to the next one.
Described by those who knew him,
I don't know who channel I seen this story from. If I gotta make a guess, it was Mike from that chapter. But I remember this boy face, y'all. Like, some of these stories, man, will just never leave you. Like, these victims, you will always remember their faces, man. Rest in peace to him, y'all. And let's revisit it. The lazy man gonna have to refresh my mind about what actually happened, though. It may have been a Mr. Ballin story, too. I don't know. Let's go.
as a ray of sunshine, Dylan Redwine was a friendly, funny, outgoing teenager who had grown up in southwest Colorado with his elder brother Corey and his parents, Elaine Hatfield and Mark Redwine. Dylan was a huge fan of practical jokes, Xbox, the great outdoors and baseball, but most of all, he loved just being a goofball. His nearest and dearest said that he had a high-pitched giggle that would set everyone else off laughing. Everyone, that is, except his father. A man of few emotions, aside from anger, Mark cast a dark cloud over the Redwine household, constantly arguing with his wife Elaine and losing his temper. This resulted in the couple getting a divorce. A messy divorce. Mark moved out to the outskirts of Durango in La Plata County, and Elaine, Corey and Dylan began a new life in Colorado Springs. Elaine eventually met a new partner, Mike, who proved to be a good role model for her boys. On November 18th, 2012, Dylan, who was just 13 at the time, flew to Durango by himself to spend Thanksgiving at Mark's cabin. It was a trip he made against his will.
Now I'm starting to remember it, y'all. This is a effed up story.
Having seen the way that he had treated his mother during divorce proceedings, Dylan couldn't help but feel uncomfortable in Mark's presence. Not to mention, he and his brother had flown out to Mark's cabin a year prior and had a terrible time, having seen a side of their father that they had never witnessed before, one that we'll get to in a bit. The night before he was due to fly out, Dylan had a sleepover with a close friend, Joseph, who noticed Dylan wasn't his usual happy-go-lucky self. He really didn't want to go, Joseph recalled. I could see the fear inside his eyes. But Dylan's personal feelings counted for naught. A judge had granted Mark visitation rights, and he insisted on seeing his son. His elder brother Corey had also been invited, but as a 19-year-old with personal autonomy, he chose not to join Dylan. A decision that haunts him to this day. These images show Dylan arriving at the Durango La Plata County Airport at 5:46 p.m, just before he met his father. From there, the pair stopped by a local Walmart to pick up some DVDs. This still, captured at 7:05 p.m. by the store security camera, is the last known image showing Dylan Redwine alive. After leaving the shop, the pair picked up some McDonald's at a drive-thru and headed to Mark's isolated cabin in the wilderness. Upon arrival, Dylan asked to spend the night at a nearby friend's house. Mark refused. In secret, Dylan had arranged to meet with that same friend at 6:30 a.m. the following morning, not wanting to spend any more time with his father. At 6:46 a.m, that same friend sent a text to Dylan, asking where he was. He didn't receive a response. At 5 p.m. on the 19th, Mark went to the marshal's office and reported Dylan missing. He claimed that when he left the house to run some errands that morning, he had left his son sleeping on the couch, and when he had returned, Dylan was nowhere to be found. A thorough search and rescue effort turned up no trace of Dylan anywhere. Not in the forests, not in the canyons, not in the mountains.
And I think, y'all, I'm pretty certain that I remember this story from Dial Trip, Kyle from Dial Trip. A guy that I just reacted to yesterday. Go check that video out if you haven't. But no, that wasn't yesterday. That was 2 days ago. Anyway, but if this story goes exactly how I remember it, for y'all that don't know about this story, the reason the father did this is gonna blow your mind. It's gonna blow your freaking mind. Let's go.
Strangely, Mark chose not to join the search that first night, opting to go to bed instead of going out with a flashlight to look for his son. Still, in the subsequent months, he did make numerous TV appearances, appealing for information about Dylan's whereabouts, and professing that he was willing to do whatever it took to bring his son home. He even announced publicly that the police could search his cabin. Well, they took Mark up on that offer, and in doing so, found a few drops of Dylan's blood in the living room. Mark explained this away, saying that it came from a football injury. That sounded plausible, but detectives decided to have Mark take a polygraph test, just to put their mind at ease. He failed miserably. Specifically, when he answered no to the question, "Do you know where Dylan is?" the machine flagged him for deception. But polygraph tests are only 80 to 90% accurate, and with no conclusive evidence of foul play, the investigators were forced to let Mark walk free. One person who was 100% convinced of Mark's guilt, though, was Dylan's mother, Elaine. Both parents later appeared on the Dr. Phil show together, with Elaine accusing Mark of knowing more than he was letting on, and Mark placing the blame on Elaine, saying that Dylan wasn't happy and that he had likely run away.
And I know the mother feel terrible, gonna always feel terrible about this, and his big brother, because his big brother was not old enough to have to go judge's order, have to go spend time with his father. You know what I'm saying? But I know he gonna always wish that even though I had the choice to go or not, I wish I did go, because maybe this wouldn't have happened. You know what I'm saying? So I just know, excuse me, y'all. I just know on the other side of the family, not him, because this is I don't even got words for him, but I'm talking about the mother and the brother of Dylan. I know that's gonna always just hurt. Like, they gonna always blame themselves, man. They gonna always freaking think that they could have did something to prevent it. Let's go.
Corey also appeared on the show and outright accused his father of killing Dylan. Despite denying any involvement in his son's disappearance, Mark refused to take a second polygraph test on the show. The search for Dylan continued for months, with law enforcement conducting wide-scale searches of Middle Mountain and the Lake Vallecito Reservoir. Finally, on June 25th, 2013, searchers found his partial remains in a remote area just 8 miles from Mark's cabin, 100 yards off a secluded dirt road. Dylan's skull wouldn't be discovered until November 2015, about 1.5 miles from where the rest of his remains were found. An examination revealed that he had lost his life after being struck on the cranium with a blunt object. This was the breakthrough the authorities had been waiting for, confirmation that Dylan was the victim of a homicide. A more thorough forensic examination of Mark's home revealed traces of Dylan's blood all over the living room. On the carpet, on the sofa, on the corner of a coffee table, on a love seat, and under a rug. Cadaver dogs also picked up the scent of human remains, not only in the living room, but also in the back of Mark's pickup. Mark was taken into custody on July 17th, 2017. Due to delays and reschedulings, the case wouldn't go to trial until 2021. Perhaps the most sickening thing that came out during the trial was Mark's alleged motive for killing his son. 1 year before Dylan disappeared, he and his brother Corey had paid a visit to their father's cabin. While browsing through Mark's laptop, they came upon some disturbing images. Photos which showed their father wearing makeup, a wig, and red lingerie, eating what appeared to be human feces out of a used diaper, and in other shots, wearing that same diaper himself.
Now y'all see why I told y'all this was gonna be the craziest shit ever. Like, that's why he, I hate to say that word. That's why he murdered his son, man. That's why he did it. Because his freaking son had found out that he was into some kinky-ish. Some kinky freak, disgusting, nasty-ish. Dressing up in women clothes, putting on makeup, putting on the wig. And that's That to me, that's to each his own. But the part that get me is he on the damn picture eating boo-boo. That's the part that get me, y'all. He is on that bitch eating ish on pictures. And his two sons seen that shit. But that do not give you a reason to kill that boy at all. Let's go. I remember this story, my brothers and sisters. I don't be forgetting these stories, man. And I'm pretty sure I watched it from Dial Trip. Shout out to Dial Trip.
Both boys instantly lost whatever respect they still had for their father. Corey snapped a photo of the screen with his mobile. During a heated text argument with Mark, the elder brother, Corey, revealed that he had seen the photos. "Hey beautiful, you are what you eat. Look in the mirror." Both enraged and humiliated, Mark warned Corey not to speak of those images to anyone, especially his younger brother. He was unaware Dylan had already seen them. From there, Corey decided he didn't want anything to do with his father ever again, and began calling him Mark instead of Dad. Unfortunately, due to the court mandate, Dylan was unable to sever all ties with his father as Corey had done. On the night his life came to an end, Dylan had sent Corey a series of text messages. Mark was apparently berating Elaine and her new partner, saying they weren't good role models. Dylan asked Corey to send over those images of their father, the ones of him with the diaper. He wanted to confront Mark about them personally, to ask him where he got off calling other people bad role models, to say that he was one to talk.
I know, right?
After receiving the photos, the prosecution argued that Dylan did just that. Mark then realized that Dylan not only knew about the photos, but had copies of them which he could use as a weapon against him. In a moment of rage-fueled madness, he took his own son's life right there in the living room, disposed of him in 2 separate locations, and spent hours cleaning up the scene before reporting him missing. Mark's first ex-wife, Betsy, with whom he had 2 children, testified that during their divorce and custody proceedings, he had told her, quote, "I'll kill the kids before I let you have them." He had also mentioned that Middle Mountain would be the perfect place to hide a body. The defense tried to argue that Dylan had actually run away and had been eaten by wild animals, but the jury wasn't buying it. After 6 hours of deliberation, they unanimously concluded that Mark was guilty of second degree. On October 8th, 2021, he was sentenced to the maximum term of 48 years behind bars. Dylan shouldn't have met with that terrible fate back in 2012. He should have been able to choose not to go to Durango. He should have been able to grow up. He should have been celebrating his 25th birthday today, February 6th, 2024. But instead, that future was taken away from him by someone he should have been able to trust.
And this just another classic case, y'all. What I be saying about these parents that be murdering their children. I hope it's a special place in hell for their ass. Like a special room, a special goddamn section off up in hell. Just for them. And it should be worse than the other sections. Like, I just don't understand how you could give birth, or even if you're a man, you're not actually giving birth, but you are cause of birth in a child or whatever. Y'all get what I'm saying? Creating a life. And then you take it away. Like, it is one thing that all mamas around the world have said, at least I feel like, but y'all get what I'm saying. I gave you life and I'll take it away. But that is more of a don't play with me, I'll whoop your ass type of thing that mamas be saying. They ain't literal with that for real, for real. These parents out here that really be murdering their kids, that is just, I don't know how the fuck you do that. And the reason that this man did it was just like, oh my God, bro, it's so crazy, man. Just because he caught you in your little kinky pictures. And like I said, y'all, as far as him dressing up and doing the wig stuff and all that, hey man, I'm not against anybody who or homosexual, or you know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to disrespect nobody. I'm trying to use my words correctly. But I'm not against gay people or lesbians or people who like the same sex. Or if you a man and you want to wear a dress or put on a wig or do whatever, I'm not against none of that. I'm not against that at all, y'all. The only problem that I'm against is he's sitting up there eating SHIT. That's the problem that I'm like, hold the F up, bro. You got to be a disgusting mother to do that. And then on, like, who has a fetish like that? How is that a fetish to eat poop? And then be on camera like you eating a damn red velvet cake, a fucking chocolate brownie. Like it's so good. If you look at him in them pictures, he was just like, it was so good. Let me stop, man, because I'm kind of making myself sick to my fucking stomach, y'all. I ain't finna talk about that case no more. All I want to say is, man, it's just nice to watch cases that I have seen from other YouTube content creators and to see them again and get reminded of it and just see a different perspective, a different narration of the whole story. I like that, man. But rest in peace to Dylan, first and foremost, and more than anything. But the first one before that, man, was Sophie, man. That is just like, bro, your ass been out. You got away with it for 26 years. And then when you finally get caught, you want us to have sympathy for you. Make it make sense, man. Can somebody make it make sense? No, nobody can make it make sense. And his freaking defense lawyers, they ought to be ashamed of themselves. Them damn defense lawyers, boy, they'll say anything just for the check. And I ain't with that, y'all. I would never in my fucking life be a defense lawyer. I don't care how much money I'm making. I'm not gonna defend some of these people and the shit that they have done and try to justify it. No. But I agree with my brothers and sisters. Woo-wee! It was a great one, man. This was a great one from the Lazy Man. I'm happy that we have started watching more from the Lazy Man, y'all. Like I said, man, I'm going to try it. Every time he put out a new video, I'm going to try to check it out within the very first week that he put it out. I'm going to let y'all go now, but before y'all leave, make sure y'all hit that like button. Y'all comment, subscribe, do all that. And come on back tomorrow for Coffee Man Fridays. But until then, my friends, you know I also got to say this. Love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.